Good evening. Welcome to Easthampton High School for our mayoral debate. It is my pleasure to introduce the moderator for tonight's event, Peter Gunn. He's a school committee member.
Good evening. I want to welcome everyone here. I want to particularly welcome the candidates and thank them first, but I hope not for the last time, for taking on the great responsibility of being a candidate for this important office. We have a tight script, and we're going to do our best to stick to it tonight. I would like to ask everyone, as we get started, that we're going to ask everyone to hold their applause tonight until the debate is finished. If we applaud as each candidate speaks, we'll have less time for questions and less of an opportunity for questions to be answered. I know it's tempting. It will be difficult. Let's do our best. At the end, we can give all of the candidates a rousing round of applause. No campaign signs. Food or drink should be inside the venue. I'd also like you all to join me in turning off your cell phone now. Take a moment and turn that off. I also want to remind you that there are students outside in the foyer who will continue to take questions that you may wish to pose to the candidates in the section of the debate that's coming up later, where there will be questions from the audience. Okay. We will have opening statements, we will have advanced questions, we'll have undisclosed questions, we'll have some specific questions. All of these I'll explain at each sequence, but we have drawn by lots the opening statement sequence. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and I want to remind the candidates that the students here in front have a yellow card that they will hold up when you have 30 seconds to go. They'll hold up a red card when the 2-minute time has been reached, and I will thank you at that point so that we can allow time for the next candidate to speak. By drawing that we did before, the order for the opening sequence will be Mrs. Cadger, Mr. Ewing, Ms. Sykes, and Mr. Glazer, in that order. So without further ado, we'll open with the first opening statement from Mrs. Cadger. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Karen Cadger, and I've lived in Easthampton for 34 years. My husband Bob is a veteran, and we've been married 38 years tomorrow. We have 2 children, Matthew and Katie. They were born in Easthampton and attended the Easthampton school system. So I know firsthand where our schools were 25 years ago, where they are now, and where they need to go. I'm proud to be a candidate for mayor of Easthampton, and I'll tell you why. Running for mayor is just an extension of the commitment I have to community service. And Easthampton is a terrific community. It's a great place to live, work, and raise a family. And I've seen firsthand the generosity and spirit of volunteerism in this community. I'm a member of the Helping Hand Committee, the Charity Committee. I'm the coordinator of the Easthampton Toy Program and a friend of the Council on Aging. I'm also a past senior companion and a former board member of the Easthampton Community Center. Most people, however, know me as Karen in the mayor's office. That's because I've worked for the city for 19 years. I know how things work, and I know how to get things done. And I've established working relationships with city department heads and state legislators. I know how to create and manage budgets. I know how to obtain state funding, which is so vital to our municipal operations. I believe my experience makes me uniquely qualified to be the next mayor of Easthampton. This city is fiscally sound. We have a first-rate public safety system, a robust business community, and a vibrant arts community. We are investing in our schools to provide the best education for our children. We need to do more, and we will do more to take care of our children and our senior citizens. And I'm confident that I have the vision, the skills, and the commitment to lead Easthampton into an even brighter future together.
Thank you. Mr. Ewing.
Good evening. I'm Dave Ewing, and I'm running to be elected the next mayor of our city. I intend tonight to educate you on myself, my platform, and my qualifications, in hope that you agree that I'm the best candidate to take our city forward. I've been the only candidate since the first debate to emphasize leadership. because that's where my proven strengths lie. I have over 20 years of proven, successful corporate leadership experience that would serve me well as our next mayor. I've made the hard decisions, and I've been comfortable making them. I've made them the same way that every U.S. military academy teaches, to make the best possible decision with the best possible information and then never look back. I have the necessary formal business and finance education to get the job done and to get it done well. I have the vision, the stamina, and the interest to carry our city forward. I have 10 years of elected municipal experience in my previous hometown of South Hadley that has given me an insight as well as a love for government. Matched side by side with my fellow candidates, I feel you agree that I'm the best choice for our city's future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sykes.
My name is Nancy Sykes, and I want to be your mayor. I want to be mayor of Easthampton. I have spent the last couple of months, weeks, talking to you. I have been listening to what you want in your new mayor, and I have heard loud and clear that what you want is someone who has proven leadership, someone who has made tough decisions, someone who has learned how to negotiate and done negotiation. As a lawyer, as a teacher, as an administrator, and as a minister, I have done all of these. And I have done them successfully. And you have told me that that is the particular type of leadership that you want for your next mayor. It's an exciting time. For the first time in 18 years, you're having the opportunity to select a second mayor. And I am thrilled about it. And I am pleased to be running and proud to be running. I do not think of the job of mayor as grueling. I think of it as an experience that I welcome. I think of it as a time to bring new energy and new perspectives to our town. Much has been done that is fabulous. There is still more to do. We do not want to stand still. We do not want to practice business as usual. We want to look forward. And I respect the past. I am a history teacher. I respect the past, but it is going to be time for us to join together and to move forward to make Easthampton the 21st model city that it can be.
Thank you. Mr. Glazier.
Yes, my name is Herbert Glazier. I want to be Easthampton's oldest and best mayor. I know I got the right stuff. For 70 years, I've been working my own company. I know how to manufacture products. I used to manufacture storm windows, replacement windows. And my quest is to bring factories back here in Easthampton. They won't be as big as East Works, but we need the revenue from these factories, the taxes they could pay. We could build high-tech products. We could build solar panels. We could build wind generators and so forth. Hydrogen batteries. I love science. I love technology. I outlived my 20 years in Florida. The reason I'm back here, I've been here 3 years in Easthampton, born in Boston, is because I have my children here. They all graduated the University of Massachusetts. My daughter Sherry is well known. And I got great-grandchildren now. So I'm a kind of a happy man. And I know I can make you happy. Put a smile on your face. I've got a sense of humor. Everybody knows this. I can do things fast. In 2 years, I could do more for Easthampton that was done in the past 16. If you're happy with the past 16 years, then I would vote for the person that's been there the longest. I will get things done. We will be humming if I get in. And
Thank you.
I am in good health, and I have great determination.
Thank you, Mr. Glazer.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move to a pair of questions, one of which is posed to all four candidates. And the order again here will be first with you, Mr. Glazer, and then Mrs. Cadger, Mr. Ewing, and Ms. Sykes. And then there's a specific question that you've drawn by lot, and we will reverse the order for those. So the first question for each of you: what are the three biggest challenges facing the city of Easthampton over the next 2 years, and how will you face them? Mr. Glazer.
Well, I feel we need jobs. Students were graduating from this school. What are they going to do when they graduate? Not all of them will have the money to go to college, but they can go to work. I went to work when I was 15. I had a little tin, I kept my money in. And it gave me great pride when I was working. And I'm sure all you out there remember when your first job and you got paid and everything else. Well, I didn't work for anybody, but I still made money. And I think jobs is 100%. We have to bring businesses in. I was in the last discussion, I hope I didn't confuse anybody, but I want business to come in, but no Kmart, because Kmart will bury, I mean not Kmart, Walmart. Walmart will bury whatever business we have here. You can say goodbye to the all the small stores, your hardware stores, they sell it all. They're a mall. And in Florida, they had super duper Walmarts, and you could drive your car in, get it greased, new tires and everything, and shop at the same time. No, they're too big, and they don't pay well. I want good paying jobs. I want factories where a person can buy a house, pay off his mortgage. And I don't like the idea of this business of foreclosing. I think something should be done by all the people to help somebody that's that bad off that they're going to be on the street. These are our problems.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glazer. Let me repeat the question for you, Mrs. Cadger. What are the three biggest challenges facing the city of Easthampton over the next 2 years, and how will you face them?
Well, I'm going to start off with the schools. I'm proud to be a part of the renaissance of this beautiful school. This is a jewel of the city. But it's only the beginning. We have a great school system, and we have dedicated school teachers. But now is the time to start planning for the upgrade of our middle school and our grammar schools. We need to set up a school building committee to take on these challenges. We came with this building, we finished this building under budget, under $17 million for the high school. And under my leadership, we'll do it again. And we'll get the funding we need to make it happen. The budget. It's a challenge to provide services our residents need in the face of shrinking budgets. Keeping and spending is essential to keeping our city fiscally sound. I'll fight right alongside of our state reps and our state legislators so that we can get our fair share of our Chapter 70 monies for schools and our Chapter 90 monies, which is for our roads. Right now, they've released $200 million of the $300 million for the roads. I'm hoping that with the help of the legislators and fighting right alongside them in Boston, we can get our fair share of the last remaining $100 million. Business. Right now, we have a booming downtown. Well, it's going to be difficult to keep up that momentum that we've got going. It's going to be difficult to keep up the buzz. So we got to support and promote our current businesses. We have to reach out regionally to attract new businesses. And we need to make Easthampton a destination location. It has to be a place where people want to go to Easthampton. We need top-rate public safety, excellent schools, senior programs and outreach, and good infrastructure.
Thank you. Mr. Ewing, what are the three biggest challenges facing the city of Easthampton over the next few years, and how will you face them?
First is affordable housing. We're at a crisis level right now, currently at about 6% in our city. The Parsons Project will help with 38 units when we're coming online, but affordable housing must remain in the forefront of the master plan. Second, roads. Chapter 90 money is currently $700,000. Governor Patrick is holding up an additional $100 million he's already approved, but so far refuses to release. I don't understand that because he's already approved it, the legislators approved it. We need to lean on our state senators and reps to lobby him to release that money. Third, growth. This is where the master plan is critical. How do we grow in population while still keeping our balance of residential, commercial, and open space in our small New England town feel? The answer to that is very careful zoning for expansion.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing. Ms. Sykes, what are the three biggest challenges facing the city of Easthampton over the next 2 years, and how will you face them?
Well, I specifically want to make sure that I answer the question because it is over the next 2 years. That's not much time, as you all know. But I think the three issues that I am most concerned about in those 2 years come under the following categories. First of all is transition. Second of all is creative growth. And third of all, sustainability. Clearly, we have to go through a period of transition, Easthampton. We are going to have a new mayor for the first time in 18 years. It is unreasonable and it is unhealthy and it is not a good idea to just say business as usual. Transitions are not frightening. They're not bad for our city. It is a good, exciting time. But it does mean that it's a time to reevaluate, a time to look at new perspectives, a time to look at the new situation that our city will find itself in. So a transition is going to be good, and I've been in situations of transition in a number of times. So I feel comfortable and ready to handle it. I want to jump to 3. I'll come back to creative growth. I want to jump to 3 because, as everyone has commented up here so far, we have had fantastic growth and arts energy and a new beautiful school that we fought for in these past years. But we cannot stop there. We must take care of what we have. Sustainability means that in those first 2 years, I am going to talk to every head of every department, and I want a list of maintenance that needs to be done now. I'm not talking about the master plan of new ideas. I'm talking now.
Thank you, Ms. Sykes. And now we'll move to the questions that you drew by lot. And again, the first question, Ms. Sykes, is to you.
Whoops.
What are your plans to bring greater efficiency to city government? Give specific examples of the ways you would save the taxpayers money while continuing to deliver high-quality services.
Well, it's a big challenge and a big question. First of all, I think that I would speak more to how I can make our city government more effective. I don't know yet whether it's inefficient, but I do know that I can work to make it more effective. And I do believe that there are ways that effectiveness will save the taxpayer money. Just some very specifics. First of all, we had the opportunity, I know from talking to Mayor Mike, to join in with the program that came out of Boston where we would have the Commonwealth Challenge. I'm not too sure what the name of it was, but it was an opportunity so that we can have a free app on our phones, and we can pop in that app whenever we see a pothole or a stoplight out or we see problems with trash in the highway. Northampton has it. It's out of Boston. There was grant money for it. I'd like to look into that because not only can you make it more efficient for things to be taken care of, but by the way, you get to follow on your app whether it's been taken care of. Another way that I can make our city government more efficient and save us money is I am a seasoned negotiator. We will not need to hire negotiators for our firemen and police contracts. I will be able to do that negotiation. We've had to pay for that in the future. Also, I think it's important that we take a look at sometimes, and I know this is going to frighten some people, sometimes you've got to spend money to save money. So I think I will look into more technology and how it can be used to save us.
Thank you. Mr. Ewing, your question. Amherst, Northampton, and other communities are involved in a regional veterans program. Easthampton is not. Do you think the veterans are better served this way, or might you consider joining that regional program?
I would absolutely consider joining it because there is economy in numbers. There is expanded outreach in numbers. And we will serve our veterans far better by joining this program.
Thank you. Mrs. Cadger, how do you see the city's relationship to the Pioneer Valley?
We need to be an active participant in all things regional. Pioneer Valley Transit Authority, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, Economic Development of Western Mass. There's a new group. It's called the Hampshire County Tourism Board, and it has the ability to get the word out about Easthampton. We need to become a destination in the valley. I believe the boardwalk would do that for us. That will make us a destination location for recreation. It'll definitely stimulate the economy and bring tourism to Easthampton. We have a new Energy Advisory Committee. And last night I attended a meeting at the Kittredge Center at Hoyle Community College. It was put on by Pioneer Valley Planning Committee and the Mass Clean Energy Committee. Everybody there, after focusing and brainstorming, agreed that what we really need to do in this region is to all communicate together so that we can share our ideas of what grants and energy incentives are out there and what works, what has worked for Easthampton, what has worked for other communities, so we can share them and know what's best, what the best results are, so we can have them here. Do we need more solar, LED streetlights, building efficiencies? Right now we're looking at maybe an anaerobic digestion at our wastewater treatment plant. And what that would do is it would save us probably $180,000 worth of money that we currently use just to truck our sludge out of the treatment plant. I know it's not a very exciting thing, but it's also a cost-effective thing. And it's just there's a feasibility study out there right now for it, and it's very interesting. And it would also, the energy from that would run our plant on top of it all.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I apologize. I missed the card. I'm going to ask you actually if you can swing over to the other side of the table with the cards. That'll help me see them as well. Thank you. Mr. Glazer, Cottage Street has seen a remarkable transformation over the past several years. What was once a run-down street is now a lively arts destination. Which was more important in that transformation? Private investment and risk-taking, or action by city government?
Well, I see both, and I believe that when people invest money, that's great, their own money, and they're taking the risk. But I can see the city making sure that there's parking and making sure snow removal, all that, so the businesses get the best shot. So I just have to say it's a case of both, but private business number one.
Thank you. We're now going to move to our questions from our reporters. I apologize. Previously, I should have thanked all of the folks who are involved, many of the students. There are more students than are listed here in your program who are involved, and I hope you will thank all of them because they are certainly the future of our city. But in this next section, the reporter panel, we are delighted to have tonight Diane Liederman from the Republican newspaper, and Mary Cerez from WHMP Radio, and they are now going to ask questions to the candidates.
I want to ask a question about the relationship.
What- He can't hear you.
The mic is,
I'll figure out the other. That one working?
Hello?
yep. Yes, I believe it is.
I want to ask you all, what role do you see the mayor playing vis-à-vis the city council? Do you see it as an important role, and how would you facilitate good government in your relationship with the city council?
Sorry, I'm going to have to just project the sequence of questions. Do you want to indicate which candidate you'd like to have answer that question first?
Mr. Glazer.
I'm sorry, I know you picked me. I was hoping you would go with Nancy first so I could hear the question. I do have hard of hearing, and it's mostly on tones, and it's not your fault. It's not even the fault of a hearing aid. It's just that I am tone deaf. And it's very embarrassing to be at a debate and not hear the question. So I want you to know that I'm not going to quit. But maybe you could start with Nancy, and I'll pick up what she says so I'll understand the question.
Diane, do you have it written down?
It's on the computer. Sure, if that's fine.
That's fine.
Okay.
Would you like for me to start?
Sure, Nancy, that,
And just to clarify, this is when I have 2 minutes, Mr. Moderator. I have 2 minutes to speak, and
Yes.
there's a minute rebuttal.
Yes.
Correct. Well, obviously, the City Council is the legislative branch of our charter. There is a very close connection between the mayor and City Council. And when I am mayor, I, of course, will continue, as our past mayor has, to work with the City Council. And also, remember, I will remember that I want to work not only in the City Council meetings, but I want to meet with them individually, and I want to know what it is that they would like from their new mayor. This is the first time City Council will ever have worked with anyone other than Mayor Mike. So I think it will be, once again, a period of learning to work together. But the charter is very clear about what our roles are. And I don't think there will be any dispute on that. And I can't imagine that there would not be cooperation between our two, the executive and the legislative branch. I have worked collaboratively in every job I have ever had, and I certainly see no reason why that would stop now.
So, Ms. Liederman, if you could just repeat the question again for each candidate. I know it's the same question, but I think that would be helpful.
Sure. What do you see as the role of the mayor when it comes to this? What do you see as the role of the city council and the mayor? How do you see them working together?
And now, yes, Mr. Glazer.
Okay, fine. Well, the mayor has to be on top of everything. He's the administrator. So naturally, the city council, he's got to be with them all the time, and every department, period. Unquote.
Thank you. Can you read the question again? Thank you.
Mr. Ewing?
The mayor and the city council are a system of checks and balances, but absolutely the mayor must project the leadership. I keep harping on the idea of leadership because that is my vision of mayor.
The mayor and the city council need to act as a team so that we can get things done in our city. So we don't have things that have just happened in Congress where everything ended. I think it was a disgrace to our nation. The city councilors were hand in hand with the mayor, because just about everything that starts off on the mayor's desk hits the city council for approvals. Our transfers, very important example. Funding. The mayor can put forth funding, but the city council can approve it or disapprove it. Appointments, the appointments of boards and committees, the appointments of our city department heads. So the city councilors have a large role, and they are the checks and balances of the mayor, and they need to work extremely close as a team. And they also have all different subcommittees, finance subcommittee, appointment subcommittee. So I think it's a very important role that the mayor has a great working relationship with them. And as far as me, I think one of my strongest points is I'm a great communicator, and I can engage the community, and that's how we get things done.
Thank you. Now, the next set of questions will be individual for each candidate, correct? Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy, I apologize.
I thought there is rebuttal time?
Well, we had originally, I must confess that in reading through this, the description originally was 2 minutes for each question. I'm happy to allow 1 minute to each candidate if you wish to respond to what was said by any of the other candidates.
That's the way I understood it.
Right, and
Mr. Young?
right, it is in the description of the sequence that I had here in front of me, and if I'm in error in that, please correct me before we go any further. But my understanding is that we are in the response time, which is 1 minute for rebuttal and 2 minutes to answer the question, for a total of 3 minutes. There was to be no rebuttal time for the advanced questions, and we did the advanced questions first. So is that, I just want to be sure that everybody understood this in the same
Is
way.
that your understanding?
Yes?
I just wanted to rebut one thing, and that was that Mr. Ewing seems to stress a real strength of leadership with the mayor, which of course I think would be difficult to rebut. I'm not going to that. I don't want to speak to that. But I did want to speak to the fact that he said you make a decision and you never look back. If you're working with the city council as mayor in a strong leadership position, and sometimes you do have to look back. Sometimes you have to work closely with the city council members in agreement of your of what direction you want to go in. I don't think it serves the mayor well to demand we're going to do it my way. I think sometimes it's important to have collaboration before it's too late to look back.
I disagree.
you.
A leader needs to be a leader. That's what the city needs.
Thank you. Mrs. Cadger or Mr. Glazer, would you care to respond to the topic further? You each can have 1 minute to add to what you said before or respond to what your fellow candidates have said.
No, that's fine. I didn't quite hear the word that I want to rebut. No.
I apologize. I apologize. So you're sure no rebuttal? Mrs. Cadger, would you like a minute to extend or rebut?
Well, I just want to say one thing, and it's regarding, I just want to clear up one issue. The city does have a veterans district. We are a veterans district. I just want to clear that up. We are a district with Easthampton, Granby, and South Hadley. So I just wanted to make a little clarification in that first question.
Thank you. Next question.
My question speaks to a conflict that in the city that pit neighbor against neighbor, and that's the Parsons Village Housing Project. What were the lessons learned as a result of that protracted public conflict? Were the people opposing that project wrong? And do you support Chapter 40B? Nancy Sykes?
If I understand correctly, how would I work in future situations to prevent a conflict that
Yeah,
happened
what were
with
the lessons
Harley?
learned by the community?
The lessons learned? Well, I think one important lesson that was learned, and I don't know that necessarily will prevent conflict, because the people of our city want to have a chance to speak out, and they had that in the Parsons Village situation. And yes, they may not have agreed with everything that happened. So, but I don't think conflict has to be bad. I think our citizens do need the opportunity to speak out when something is happening in our city. So the lesson learned is, yes, let's hear from the neighbors. Let's hear from the public. I don't know that I agree with your interpretation of pitting neighbor against neighbor. I don't know that it got that dramatic. But we can disagree. We can disagree on that. But I do think it is always important that this, in our city, that we have you are given the opportunity to voice your opinion. And you know, even more importantly, when a decision is made, that you know the reason for that decision. You do not have to agree with it, but you will know why, from my office, the decision was made. Oh, Chapter 40B.
Yeah, do we still have timekeeper?
Yes, I support Chapter 40B.
Yes, so do I. We can have all the hearings that we want, but unless people really and genuinely feel heard, that's what pits neighbor against neighbor. And that's what creates the not in my backyard mentality. We have to listen to people, and we have to genuinely and sincerely consider what they're saying.
Sometimes what people really have to understand is if there's a federal project that is going to come into the city for fair housing, it's going to come into the city. So you have a small window of opportunity of what do you want to see in your community for that development. Neighbor against neighbor is never a good thing. You have to look at it as optimistic. If it's going to come here, how do we make it more attractive to us? How do we benefit from it? How can it be a pleasant experience instead of a negative thing? There is definitely a shortage for affordable housing. All you have to do is look around and see the prices of apartments and the need. It's there. It's everywhere. I think what people really get mixed up with affordable housing is the guidelines. The standard guideline is $35,000 for a single person. Now, I work with a lot of people that make $35,000. Those are the people. They deserve housing. Everybody deserves housing. So, of course, I'm in favor of 40B.
Could you repeat the question again for Mr. Glazier, please?
Sure. Mr. Glazier, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the Parsons Village housing development that was so controversial in the city. And what do you think the city learned from that?
It's the same thing. Well, truthfully, I'm not really up on a conflict with the Parsons Village. But I know, I talk to people, and this is almost amazing, in the Paragon building on Pleasant Street. They have apartments on the 3rd floor. There's no elevator there that I see. But everybody I spoke to in those apartments are very happy with the low rent. They're there. They got the new windows, and they feel that they're very happy. So
excuse me, Mr. Glazier? Mr. Glazier, can I interrupt you for a minute? I'm speaking specifically to the issue of affordable housing, of a controversial affordable housing development.
It's very affordable housing there because they're using a building that's already there. They've got floors, walls. They need new windows. They have to put in forced hot air heat. But it's working for them. And we've got a lot of buildings like that. They're run down, they're empty, but they put a roof over a person's head and they're not street people. I'm talking about people in low income.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Would any of you care to respond? You have up to 1 minute to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. I would just like to speak to the comment about people have to understand. People have to be informed.
I didn't hear that one.
I think that's the most important thing. Not everyone understands Chapter 40B. Not everyone understood what was happening as far as Parsons Village was concerned. So I think that it is up to local government, and the mayor is the leader, to make every possibility to inform our citizens when something is developing or happening.
Mr. Ewing.
I very much agree. There's a stereotype that persists that affordable housing is welfare housing, and that's very untrue.
Ms. Catcher.
As far as everybody understanding, there are usually several public hearings, so that everybody has the opportunity. If you're interested in a specific issue, in a specific area, then get involved, go to the public hearings, watch them on the television, read about them in the newspaper. All the information is provided so that you can know what's going on in your community.
Thank you. Mr. Glacier, would you care to comment on?
Yes, well, everybody should participate in a community, just like the people are here now. And what you have to do is voice your opinions and also your grievances, so you can make it known that what you want to have done. It's this country, we the people don't seem to fit in anymore. It's like big corporations are 10, we the people are 0. We see what's happening in Washington. We certainly don't want it to happen here in our city. You've got to fight a little bit too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glacier. Okay, now, if I understand the process, we have candidate-specific questions. Is that correct? Or do you want? And I do apologize to the candidates and to the audience here in the room. There's, we're trying to manage a series of different questions. Is that correct?
I think that's, okay.
Yes? Okay, so again, the process will be the same. You'll have 2 minutes to formally respond to that question, and then after each candidate has responded to their specific question, you'll be allowed 1 minute to rebut anything that has been said by the other candidates. Okay, thank you.
This is for you, Karen. For better or worse, you have been Karen in the mayor's office. If you are mayor, how do you see yourself carrying out some of the things that Mayor Mike has brought forth, and how do you see yourself different? I mean, will people, if they elect you, sort of have continuation of the way things are? How are you going to make yourself Mayor Karen? Or
Well, I think you said it when you said Karen in the mayor's office. I'm already there. So people are very comfortable with me, and I don't see it as a difficult transition at all. I've been, I guess you could call it on-the-job training for 19 years. And I don't think it would be difficult because per charter, the mayor can appoint anybody he wants during his absence, and he chooses me. Why would he choose me out of all the people that he could choose? He chooses me because he trusts me, and he knows that no matter what happens, in case of emergency, no matter what's going on, I'll get the job done, and I'll take care of things. And we have had some times where, we've had some difficult situations arise, and he has confidence that I can handle it, because I can. I've worked with the chiefs on all different issues, and as far as the staff, they already know me as the go-to person. I solve everybody's problems. That's what I do. You have a problem, you come see me, I take care of it, and I fix it. I love my job, I love the people I work with, and I absolutely love this community. I hope that answered your question, Diane.
Thank you. Next question.
Nancy. Okay. I have a question for Nancy Sykes. The Hilltown Cooperative Charter School is going to be moving to Easthampton next summer. Good thing or bad thing?
You got the memo too today.
No, I didn't get the memo.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was decided.
They didn't give you...
They have been granted.
Oh, okay.
Until today, it had not been decided whether they would be granted the opportunity to move to Easthampton. But today, the letter came out.
What are your thoughts on this, good or bad?
First of all, I think that it is an opportunity for Easthampton as far as having another school in our community. But I think, once again, it has a negative side to it, and that is that it means that it is quite possible that more money will be taken out of Easthampton's school budget. With every child that goes to it will no longer be the Hilltown charter school, because it won't be in a hill town, so their mission will surely have to change. But for every child that goes to the Hilltown charter school, we have 22 to 23 right now from Easthampton. We pay between $10,000 and $12,000 per student to that charter school, and that comes out of the Easthampton budget. Yes, there is funding from the state for some reimbursement, but it is so convoluted and so difficult. So I think it's going to be a challenge for us, Easthampton. It's going to be a challenge for us to stand up and make sure that our community knows just how great our Easthampton public schools are, as well as they know the option of the local Easthampton Hilltown charter school. Every parent has that right to make a decision as to what is best for their child. But as a community, we must really work on this one.
Thank you. Next question.
Mr. Glazier, can you hear me okay?
I'm going to do my best. I'll tell you, I think it's the microphones that kind of blur out the sound.
How about if I...
It's not your fault, I keep telling you. And if I was old, I'm so old I can't even be embarrassed, but I should be. But I'm doing the best I can, and so are you.
What I want to ask you is, you have not had political experience. How would you, on your first day of the job, become mayor?
Okay, I heard you. One of the reasons I'm running is I'm not a politician. We all know, we see the news, you watch CNN, there's only about 5% of the people that trust politicians. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. We don't trust the government anymore. Only 28% trust the U.S. government. We saw it shut down. I'm old, and I might be hard of hearing, but I would never shut down the government. I understand it cost us $25 billion during the time, the 15 days that it was shut down. It's shameful. I want you to know I know how to spend money and get the biggest bang out of a buck you ever saw. I will make you happy because you'll be going into a bank to make deposits. There will be no foreclosures. I will see to it that factories will be humming here like in the good old days. I lived in the good old days. I know when the government was a democracy. It's not the same democracy it was. You know it, I know it. That's why I'm here. I want to fight back. I would like Easthampton to be a spark. And with a spark, you can make a flame. And this could be a show place because you people participate, and I will carry out and be your servant, what you want. But I know what has to be done. We need jobs, and we have to get as much grants as we can while they're still out there, because they're going to be disappearing.
Thank you. We have one more, yes.
Yeah, my next question is for Mr. Ewing. Mr. Ewing, I've heard you speak over the course of the campaign about your 20 years of corporate management experience, yet I haven't seen your CV. Could you please be very specific about what exactly you did, what your responsibilities were, where you worked, where you went to school? Could you please enlighten us about your CV, about your resume? Please be specific.
Specifically about career?
Yeah.
Okay. I have been a corporate leader for companies with as few as 25 people under me, with as many as 100 people under me on all levels. I've provided leadership that have had some of my people calling me the most inspiring leader they've ever worked for.
Where was that, Mr. Ewing? Where were you working when you did that?
Specifically at Walgreens Corporation.
And what was your job at Walgreens?
Okay. At Walgreens, I led a store with income of over $3 million a year.
You were a store manager
Yes.
for 20 years?
I'm sorry?
20 years, a store manager.
Not for Walgreens. I was for Walgreens for 6 years.
And could you please go on?
Okay. I was with Ace Hardware for 3 years in the same capacity. I was with Brooks Drug for 7 years.
And you speak about your education. Could you please be specific as to your education?
I'm sorry, specific as to what?
Education.
Okay. Education, I have attended Hoyle Community College, Division of Continuing Education, for approximately 26 years. Every time I worked for a company where I won a scholarship, I went back to school. I've taken virtually every business and finance class off over that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now there's 1 minute for each of you to respond to anything that any of the other candidates have said. So we can go through in the same order, Mrs. Cadger, then Ms. Sykes, then Mr. Glazer, and then Mr. Ewing. So, Karen, you're going to have the first minute.
I don't have any
Okay? Ms. Sykes?
rebuttal time.
I just want to clear up one thing that Ms. Cadger said. The charter, if the mayor is out 10 days or more, the charter requires that the head of the city council be appointed acting mayor. It is only when the mayor is out for less than 10 days. And also, the charter clearly states the acting mayor is forbidden to do, that's not the language, that the charter says the acting mayor has no authority to make certain decisions.
I agree with Ms. Sykes. The charter states that the acting mayor has no power except in emergency situations.
Well, you know I'm going to touch that one. Okay, when you're appointed as acting mayor, it's a designation to exercise the powers and perform the duties of the mayor, and that is per Section 3-8 of the Easthampton Home Rule Charter.
Thank you. Mr. Glazer, would you care to speak to any of those issues?
As an acting mayor, I would just carry out the thoughts and what the people in Easthampton want done. I'm sure they want jobs. They want to make sure their businesses are safe, that they're going to stay in business, and that would be my number one job, money.
Thank you. So we have a second round, again, of questions that will be specific to each candidate, and we'll go through the same process. Again, 2 minutes to respond, and then at the end of all 4 responses, a minute each to respond or rebut to things that were said by other candidates.
This is for Mr. Ewing. I want to ask you about social media, Twitter, Facebook. How will you use some of these modern tools to keep people in Easthampton?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that question.
My question is about social media. How will you use sort of the modern social media like Twitter and Facebook and keeping people in Easthampton informed on a regular basis? Various leaders, the Northampton mayor, for example, will post things regularly about events and things going on in the city and keeps kind of a running dialogue. I'm just wondering how you will engage with social media.
I realize how popular social media is. I'm not a particularly big fan of it myself. It's necessary. Personally, I don't like Facebook. I find it boring. But Twitter, maybe. I would do the very little necessary bit possible to put blogs out for people who aren't informed any other way. I'd rather see a newsletter.
I'm sorry?
I'd rather see a newsletter.
Thank you.
I have a question for Karen Cadger. What do you see as the city's biggest environmental problem? What's being done to solve that?
The biggest environmental problem? Well, I think we have worked alongside a lot of our environmental problems with the closing of 2 landfills and actually making one of them into a beautiful solar field for energy. Environmental, we have just set up, as I was talking about before, a clean energy committee. And as I was just speaking earlier about attending a meeting with Mass Clean Energy and Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, we need to go green, obviously, and efficient. And one of the projects I was talking about was anaerobic digestion, which doesn't sound very exciting, but it would actually run our wastewater treatment plant efficiently and also save us money on removing sludge to a different area. So our environmental issues are trying to be as efficient as we possibly can, and I think we've been addressing a lot of them. We have LED streetlights in all our main areas, our downtown areas. Do we want to extend that to all our neighborhoods? That would be more efficient. Do we want to, do more solar? And I think we're on the way, and a lot more has to be done. But I think working along with Mass Clean Energy would probably give us a lot of ideas on how we can keep our environment.
Thank you.
Okay, this is for you, Nancy.
Okay.
You have mentioned business as usual a couple of times tonight, and I'm just wondering, what do you mean by business as usual?
Well, I don't really. I stole that term from Ms. Cadger. She used it on occasion in other
I've never used that term.
comments. But anyway, I think what I am referring to is that when I am mayor, I bring a new perspective to Easthampton's mayor's office, and I don't think it can be business as usual, and it goes back to the question I think Ms. Cadger was asked a little while ago, and that is, how will she be the same mayor that Mayor Mike is? And I don't know that she answered that, but I don't think anyone can be Mayor Mike. So I cannot be, and I will not try to be. So there will be changes in the mayor's office. There will be changes in Payson Avenue. They have never worked with another mayor. Whoever is mayor, there will be changes. And that is what's so fantastic about a transition time period. And I think that what I mean by it is I will be a different mayor in the office.
Thank you.
I have another question for Karen Cadger. The fish ladder, Manhattan River.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
I
Right.
wanted that.
Started out with what, $750,000 of stimulus money, turned into this big Pandora's box, right? Cost overruns, there was a lawsuit, things almost done now. Was it worth it? What did you learn from that?
Well, I think everybody has probably learned that one to death. It's been in every article. I mean, it's probably one of the most crucified projects that we've had in Easthampton. I think what I've learned is, and some of the things, you can't foresee. When you have consultants on a project that are hired to do just that, and they miss some of the things that ended up overpricing the project. I mean, that's unfortunate. It's difficult. But there's an expression, the project is just about done. And once something is 80% complete, it would have been a horrendous waste to stop it at that point in time. The funds we're using are from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They are not city funds. We understand that these are still taxpayers' dollars because federal funds and state funds, grants, whatever they are still taxpayers' dollars. But once a project comes that close to completion, it would have been more of a disaster to just leave it there in disarray, to just basically be vandalized.
Thank you. I believe since that is 4 questions, we'll now have up to 1 minute for each of you to respond to anything that any of the other candidates have said. Mr. Glazier, do you want to respond to any of the questions that have been mentioned so far?
Do you have anything to say, any rebuttals about any of this?
No, I don't want to.
Thank you. Ms. Cadger?
Well, I can't let this one go. Business as usual has not been my expression once. A lot of my expressions have been taken by other candidates, and that's fine. I consider it a compliment, but that's not one of them.
Sorry, then, I must have gotten it from someone else.
Mr. Ewing, would you? No? Ms. Sykes?
I've learned a lot from the fish ladder. I was so hoping that question would be asked tonight. I've been sitting on the edge of my chair. In all seriousness, though, what I've learned from the fish ladder situation is that we in Easthampton cannot make these plans without providing for sustainability. Yes, it is true, the funds to build the fish ladder did not come out of our city budget, but whose budget is going to maintain the fish ladder? We never seem to work that in. We never seem to plan for that. And we have so many examples of it in our city. We have great maybe ideas, and I don't know whether the fish ladder was a great idea, but it's there. But now we have got to pay to take care of it.
Thank you. I believe at this point that it would be good to pause and to take questions that the students have gathered. Are we ready? The students gathered the questions so that we can have those brought forward.
Where are they?
Got them? Great. Super. This is how we do things in Easthampton. We use every resource available. And if we've got time, so if the request is there, if there are other questions that have come up in the audience, I would invite the students to canvass again and see if there are other questions that you might think are important.
Are you leaving?
We're gonna switch seats here.
Maybe they can come over and ask you.
Oh, good.
Maybe I'll get a chance.
So the one thing we've learned so far tonight is the importance of speaking into the microphone. And if you would start first just by introducing yourselves to the candidates and to the audience.
Hello, I'm John Douglas. I'm a junior here at Easthampton High School.
I'm Olivia Ferguson. I'm also a junior at Easthampton High School.
Our first question is for Karen Cadger. What will you do to promote transparency in committees and offices, if anything?
Well, I would have a completely transparent administration. First thing I said I would do is throw open the lines of communication. Communication is one of my strong points. We already have videos that Channel 5 has installed in all of our meeting rooms at 50 Payson Avenue. And I think it's an excellent idea so that the public can see what's transpiring in any of these meetings, especially meetings like CPA, community preservation, where funding is involved. A lot of times, by the time the decision comes to the City Council for a funding transfer, the public has no idea what transpired, who went to the meeting, and what questions were asked, and how they determined that project would be funded versus others. So transparency is the way public government should be anyway.
All right, this next question is for David Ewing. The recent Prop 2.5 override initiative was voted down. The override would have allowed some teachers and programs that are greatly needed to be restored to our public schools. As mayor, how would you work to restore these staff and services that are so greatly needed? This is from Michelle G.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that at all. Could you speak that into the microphone, please?
The recent Prop 2.5 override initiative was voted down. The override would have allowed some teachers and programs that are greatly needed to be restored to our public schools.
When it comes to me, write it down.
As mayor, how would you work to restore these staff and services that are so needed?
Yes, I understand the questions about Proposition 2.5 override for the schools. Our community has been strictly resistant to Property 2.5 overrides, God bless. But I do believe the one for the school was necessary. It only cost us 83 cents per $1,000 valuation, and it's well spent.
This question is for Herbert Glazier. I'm sorry.
Is it possible for you to bring him the question so he can read it?
Oh, all right.
But you can read
Yeah,
it out to
and
us.
if I could, while you're doing that, John, and I appreciate you're doing that, I think that would be very helpful for Mr. Glazier. So if you could bring over the written question for him, that would be great. I just want to remind people in the audience, and again, I apologize for not publicly thanking Kelly Brown and the students here who are taking in all of the questions. So we've seen some questions that have come up, and people have been placing them next to John. John and Olivia already have a responsibility, so I'm just going to ask that those questions, John, if you could give those to the student committee that's working behind you, backstage, and they can look through those questions and be sure that we're not repeating things or taking things out of order. Would that be okay?
Right.
So, Tom, I'm trying to get Tom's attention. He can't hear me backstage. Could you come grab these questions, please? Take a look at them, and then we'll bring them back out, just so that we're going through the same process with all the questions. Okay? All right, so John, if you could bring the question that you had for Mr. Glazier.
Should I read it to the audience first? Or?
Yes, please read it to the audience and then to him. Thank you.
All right.
Maybe if I sat next
How does the creation and preservation of affordable housing fit into your vision of the future of Easthampton? This was submitted by Ray Drunowski.
I'm sorry.
He's going to bring the question to you so you can get it right.
Okay, the question is affordable housing fitting into my vision. Well, I mentioned that we have warehouses, actually, that could be made into housing, apartments. I live in the Sullivan House, and it's very affordable, and it's very comfortable. It's small, but very adequate. I have good parking, they plow it out, and I can get around very easy. I think for a family, it would be a little bit different. I live in one room. But still, we could build these very inexpensive. I've been in construction all my life, and you can build prefab, and you could make the house and energy very green because I'm for solar panels on the roof, and even wind energy. We could have generators. And this can save people a lot of money because the utility costs keep going up and up. So if I was mayor, I would create these things. I used to be able to build a room, believe it or not, in 3 hours. It was all pre-construction. You just slid it in, male and female, boom, boom, boom. You put a roof over it, and you had a room that was very nice. It was all insulated, sliding windows. You can build a house almost the same way. They can be built very inexpensive. And that's what I would push if I was mayor. Construction, I know all about it. Thank you.
Thank you. John and Olivia, what's the next question?
All right, this next question is for Nancy Sykes. Do you have a plan to stimulate new business growth? Yes or no, and if so, what will it be?
Well, I know that we spoke at the last debate a great deal about business, and I think one way that we will be able to stimulate business in Easthampton is it's like the more we get, the more the people will want to be here. so that more people coming into our city, whether it's for our arts activities, whether it's for our beautiful parks, they will begin to see what a place we are and speak of wanting their business to be here. But as mayor, it will be my job to make sure that I am out there meeting these business people who want to be here, and that I will be the face of Easthampton, and I will participate in as many other community activities in our neighboring Pioneer Valley cities and towns, whether it be Holyoke or whether it be Pittsfield or whatever. Well, Pittsfield's a little out of our area, but I will make sure that I am selling Easthampton to those who want to have their business here. And we will have, in my mayor's office and through the planning office, we will have a instructions manual, if you want to call it that, on what you have to do to set up your business here in Easthampton. It'll be easy. And I think all of that put together will stimulate more coming in. But remember, we have to make a decision. In that first 2 years of my administration, I'm going to be talking to a lot of people. We have to make a decision of how much creative growth do we want. We don't want just willy-nilly. We want to be planning and thoughtful about it.
Thank you. John, we've had 4 questions on 4 topics, and each has gone to an individual candidate. Would any of you like to comment on the question that was asked to one of your fellow candidates? And we have up to 1 minute for you to respond. Ms. Gadger.
Oh, I would love to talk about stimulating new business. I think the first thing you want to look at is how do you attract new business? What are businesses looking for? Well, what they're looking for is an attractive downtown. So if you have a downtown that's thriving like ours and buzzing like ours and is being talked about, that's what people are looking for. They're looking for an area where they can start a business, where they're going to get patrons, and they're going to make business. And again, I keep going back to the boardwalk. That is your stimulus. It is the #1 thing to stimulate Easthampton's economy, and it will lead you right into the cultural district.
Thank you. Mr. Ewing.
My turn.
Mr. Ewing, and then you, Mr. Glazier, if that's all right.
I agree with that, but businesses are also very much looking for a single-payer tax rate where they pay the same rate that residents pay, which is not the case in many surrounding cities, but it is here in Easthampton.
Thank you. Mr. Glazier.
I want to bring in business, but most important, I want to bring in factories. Like I said, Easthampton used to be big in manufacturing. We got all the stuff, we got empty buildings. Businesses like the floors. They got plenty of floor space. It's strong. It's all slab construction. And if you even bring in one factory with 30 people, that would bring in tax money, that would give jobs for maybe students graduating from the school, and we could bring in 5, 6, 7 of these immediately. I know I could do it. We have all the right stuff for factories. Why not here? I'm not talking about factories that are now in China. That's what happened to our country.
Mr. Glazier, I apologize. I'm going to have to stop you there. Thank you. We have one more candidate who can respond for 1 minute. Sykes.
Yes, I'd like to speak a little on the school issue that was brought up, I believe, a minute ago about the 2.5 override, and also much earlier in the debate or the forum when Ms. Cadger spoke that one of her main objectives or challenges in her first 2 years was schools, and she said that we must, or she would like to organize a building committee. That is not the process. That is not the process to get a new elementary schools or revision for our Whitebrook Middle School. That is not the step you start with We know the steps through the high school, and the first step is to file a statement of interest with the Massachusetts School Authority. You don't form a building committee until the Massachusetts Building Authority accepts your statement of interest, and you've gone through many other steps.
Thank you. John and Olivia, do we have time for one more? I mean, do you have questions? One more round? Could we do one more round? Because
Yes.
we're good on schedule. Great.
All right, for Ms. Cadger. Much has been said about the great steps of improvement that have occurred in our city. All projects require tax and/or grant money to be maintained. What will...
I can't hear you.
Much has been said about the great steps of improvements that have occurred in our city. All projects receiving tax and/or grant money require maintenance. What will your role be in acquiring, correct, and ensuring correct and future projects receive required maintenance?
Sounds like you're asking me about maintenance of projects that we've received grant funding for. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, no matter what project we have in the city, it demands maintenance. All your city buildings, your schools, there's always going to be a maintenance. I mean, that's in a wonderful world, you could have a maintenance person in every single place. Well, guess what? With 10 years worth of budget cuts, we have had to cut staff. Most of these people are doing the best they can. Look around in this high school. I'm sure they would like plenty more custodians here. You know, these people work hard. So as far as maintenance, we do maintain, other than, you know, what you hear here tonight, we do maintain our buildings, and we do maintain any of the grant properties we've had. It might not be perfect, but we're working on it. Those are technicalities. So you don't refuse to have new projects come into the city just because you don't think you can maintain them. Of course we can maintain them. It just might not be, you know, 100%, and we're working on it. And do we need to do better? Sure, and we will do better. And we can maybe get some creative. Maybe if we could get much, and people, instead of complaining about things, maybe if they would lend their hands as volunteers and get up some creative ideas, beautifications, where we have landscapers offer their time to the city properties, and we would, you know, to beautify them, and we would pay for the product. There's lots of ways. We have lots of volunteers right at 50 Payson Avenue. We paint our walls, we do tons of things. Just look through the community, and you'll see an enormous amount of volunteers that will help out in any way, shape, or form. So maybe just getting them together on different things that really need to be done, but not eliminating projects because you're afraid you can't maintain them.
Thank you. Next question.
All right, this one is for David Ewing. Considering the level of the position of mayor, please give specific examples that demonstrate your leadership style and success.
David.
As I understand, the question is to give specific examples of leadership. I am very tough on myself. I expect 100% of myself. I expect 98% from everyone under me. And I believe that that flows downhill at all levels.
The next question is for Hubert Glazier. I'll give him the question after I read it. Can you envision a wireless activity for the city?
Well, why not? Everything's going wireless, so why not for the city? Yes, 100%. I could go with that. And if we can get rid of the wires, we could get rid of the lampposts that are right in the corner, almost in the street, where the cars have to make a turn. And if you notice, every lamppost has been scraped, so every car has been dented. Wireless is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. One more question, please.
This is for Nancy Sykes. Please give a specific or concrete example of your experience as a leader.
Okay. When I was teaching out of the country, I was in this country of Jordan, and I was at a school called King's Academy, and I was put in charge of the accreditation process for two different groups that were coming in, one international and one national, which many of you may have experienced in your own public schools or your own private school situations. But I had to make sure that this happened within a year. It usually takes 3 years. So I had to set up programs where all the departments of the school would be evaluated. And that meant food services, that meant public safety, that meant faculty, that meant curriculum, that meant every department. I was in charge of that. And I had to make sure it was done on time. Because this was in the Middle East, there was a requirement by the International Accrediting Division that we had to have an evacuation plan for the entire school. That meant over 400 people in a country where I did not speak Arabic. I got that plan done. I worked with the staff of King Abdullah. I worked with the security staff of the school, and we got that plan. And there were many other challenges in that particular leadership situation, but I met those challenges by working collaboratively with each department. And I was successful. We got the accreditation by both divisions within a year.
Thank you. Again, we've had 4 questions on 4 related topics. Would any of you like to use a minute to respond to anything that the other candidates have said? The order in which the questions was asked is the order that will go again. So, Ms. Cadger.
Well, talking about leadership experiences, my leadership experiences are right here in Easthampton. I have been the leader of Easthampton.
Thank you. Mr. Ewing.
My leadership skills go back decades. I was 20 years as a Boy Scout leader. I was a junior achievement teacher. I've been involved in youth leadership all of my life.
Thank you. Mr. Glazer.
Yes, I've been in business all my life. I've been a boss of over 20 people when we manufactured storm windows and replacement windows. I get along with people, and I feel bad tonight that you look at me as an old man who's deaf, but I hear very well, but not with these microphones, and I am tone deaf. But that's about it. I know I can do a great job because I know how money has to be spent, and I know how to bring factories in here, and without factories, we are going to be in big trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sykes.
I think that all our life experiences that we have had lead us to our leadership style. And I have learned by being a minister, a lawyer, a teacher, a law school dean, assistant dean, I have learned my leadership style. And I have learned that the most important part of my leadership style is listening to other people. You can never learn anything new except your own plans if you do not listen. And I have learned that working collaboratively with people is part of my leadership style. And that making difficult decisions is necessary for any leader. But you always gather your data first. I have had to make unpopular decisions or votes as head of the school committee, but I always gathered my data, and I always explained why I voted the way I did.
Thank you. I think we're going to switch now. Yes, we have another set of a pair of students who are going to join us. So thank you, Olivia. Thank you, John. And then I'm not sure who's coming out next, but I've been promised 2 more good folk. Looks like Tom and Jen. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Please introduce yourselves. My understanding is that we're going to cycle through another. Is this correct? Tom and Jen, how many questions do you have?
We have 6.
You have 6 more. Okay,
Yep.
great.
So, I'm Tom Palaschek. I am a senior at Easthampton High School.
I'm Jen Safer, and I'm a junior at Easthampton High School.
Right. So, our first question is for Ms. Cadger. So, the question is, how important do you think civic education and courses relating to the government are within the public school system?
Very important. To learn about your government and the way it runs is absolutely important. All your classes, it's as important as your English and your literature and also extracurriculars. But I think there are a lot of people that would probably be embarrassed to say that they do not, understand the different forms of government. Like in Easthampton, when I first started here, we had a town form of government, which had a board of selectmen and a town administrator. And the board of selectmen were the executive authority, and the town administrator was basically their manager. Now, actually 2 years after I started working for Easthampton, the charter was changed, and we changed to a city form of government. And it was probably really great that I had 7 years legal experience in Massachusetts, working for a law firm in Holyoke. So I was able to switch over all our documents from a town form of government to a city form of government. And the funniest thing was, even though we were a city form of government, we were still known as the town of Easthampton. So it was probably maybe a year and a half after that the city councilors decided that was, confusing, and decided to actually change us to the city of Easthampton, even though a lot of people think of us as a town, and a lot of people call us a town. So knowing your government is vital to knowing how things work. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Our next question is for Mr. Glazier. How will you help Easthampton gain recognition at the state level?
I didn't hear the question.
Thank you.
That is a very good question, bringing Easthampton up to the state level. Well, it's a good question, but I really don't have quite an answer how to bring it up to the state level, because I'm not all that happy with the state of Massachusetts as the way it's handling its money. As I said, I'd like to see Easthampton be a light to show people what can be done with a community smaller than the average city, but able to do things right, because the people will get behind the mayor, and the mayor will have great communication with the people so things can be done properly. Not wasting money, not overtaxing, but getting things done in the right direction. I don't think Massachusetts is doing all that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
All right, so this question is for Ms. Sykes. So the question is, in what ways will you encourage community activism and involvement in Easthampton?
Well, I'd actually like to bring something back that I know was done during the master plan time when the community was making decisions about the master plan. I'd like to bring back community involvement, whether it be a series of lectures that perhaps can be offered by our citizens who have wisdom in a particular topic, and the community can gather for those free lectures, or we can go back to the community dinners that were held during that time of the master plan. And I also think that, once again, any time that you have the opportunity to bring the people of the community together of all ages, it really is a benefit. And I don't know if that serves your question of activism. I think of activism as being involved in what is happening in your city. So I think the more community members that we can identify and be contact with, and I'll be meeting them, and they'll be coming to my office, and I'll have, I'll be so visible that I hope that can generate more interest in becoming involved in what's happening. Because I really believe that for us to be a model 21st century, the people of our city have to believe they had a say in what was happening.
Next question.
Our next question is from Mr. Ewing. What are your plans for the empty factory buildings on Ferry Street?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that question.
What are your plans for the empty factory buildings on Ferry Street?
Can I read that, please?
Yeah.
What are my plans for the empty factories on Ferry Street? I have a wish list to offer tax incentives to bring developers in to give us options for affordable housing, which was number one on my list of the top 3 things the city needs to consider in the next 2 years. I can't see a better use for these than housing.
Thank you. So just to be clear, you say is it 2 more questions that you have?
We're all set.
You're all set. Okay. Then thank you for the questions. We'll again allow each candidate 1 minute to respond, and this time the order is Ms. Cadger, Mr. Glazer, Ms. Sykes, and Mr. Ewing. So Karen, you have 1 minute to respond.
Okay. Regarding community activists, I've been an activist in the community since I've lived here in 1979. You want to get involved in things that we really need in this community. The Easthampton Community Center, where they have food bags, they're looking for people to hand out food bags every week. I'm involved where the Helping Hand Society pays for one of their meals. They do 3 meals, which you would probably classify as a soup kitchen, but they're not. They're great meals: turkey, mashed potatoes, well-rounded meals. They do 3 of those a month. Our Helping Hand Society pays for one of them, and we go there and serve them. Also, our Helping Hand Society, we provide breakfasts to the seniors, coats to the children, fuel assistance. That's just one thing to get involved in. That's the Helping Hand Society. The Charity Committee also hand out.
Thank you. That's great. I have to
Thank you.
move us along. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Herbert, Mr. Glazer, would you like to respond to any of the comments that have been made in this round of questions?
No, that's fine.
You're sure? You could extend something that you said before. You have a minute's time, sir, right? You sure?
Yes.
Okay. Nancy.
Took me by surprise there for a moment.
Sorry.
I would like to speak to the making Easthampton known at the state level. I think there will be advocacy that is necessary of your next mayor. And I have had experience with that as a lawyer, and I've had experience with that as a negotiator. So I do know how to advocate, how to speak up for what you want by giving your reasons, by giving your arguments, by giving your data. And I think that earlier I was asked the question about charter schools, and I was asked were they bad or good. But one of the things that it's going to be necessary for me to do as mayor is to advocate for a change in the formula as to how charter and choice schools are funded by the state. And that I can do for Easthampton. I know how to do that.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point, I apologize. David, forgive me.
We need to advocate much further for our senior citizens. Our current budget is about 0.1% for the Council on Aging, which is a shame. Linda does tremendous things with that money. I have already committed, if elected, to doubling that budget.
Thank you. And thank you all. In a moment, we're going to hear closing statements. I want to thank Tom and Jen and all of the students who are here, and Kelly Brown and the wonderful teachers that have inspired you and helped you come out and participate in this. I think it's fantastic. We know that Channel 5 has done a great job. I want to thank again Dr. Perrone for making the facility available for us, the Democratic Committee for organizing this mayoral candidate forum. I just want to remind folks that there's important information. We often don't read what's handed to us except for a few things, but there's really some crucial information here. Perhaps most importantly is to be sure that we all get out and vote on Tuesday, November 5th, 2013. We're about to hear closing statements. For the closing statements, each candidate will have 2 minutes. We will go in the reverse order of the opening statements. So the first closing statement, you have 2 minutes for this. Mr. Glazer.
Yes, I want to be your mayor because I get things done, and I get them done fast. Like I said, give me 2 years, and I will give you more that would happen in the last 16. I know everything on construction. I know what things should cost. Nobody's going to pull any wool over your eyes. And I believe in communication. I might be hard of hearing with these microphones, but I hear people very good every day. And I would like always to hear from the citizens. They are the ones I would be serving. And I would do a 100% good job. I don't sleep that much. I was in the papers, I had a full page on clever. That's what it said. And I would use all my cleverness to make Easthampton really, really something. And I'm up here because I'm worried about the whole country. It's really not the way it was when I grew up. The children here in this school, when they graduate, I want to make sure that their future, they have a future. Things are terrible. I want to make them better. I know I can do it. I want you to give me a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glazer. Ms. Sykes.
Thank you, and thank you, Easthampton, and people that are here tonight for your thoughtful questions and your attention. I am the best choice for your new mayor. I am the best choice for your new mayor because I am the only one of the 4 candidates who has already been elected by you twice to the school committee, and now I serve as chair. I am the best choice for your next mayor because I am the only one of the 4 of us who have had advocacy experience. I am the only one that has had negotiation experience. I am the only one that has had leadership experience and understands her leadership style. I have not just shadowed a leader, I have made decisions in leadership positions. And I am the best choice for your next mayor because I believe wholeheartedly in the importance of understanding that there is only one reason for government. And that one reason for government is to serve the people. I have taught civic classes. I have taught history. I have worked in the high schools. I believe in local government. And I am the only candidate that has had any experience on the school committee. And if schools are a vital part of our city and of interest to everyone on this panel you have heard tonight, all the candidates. And I am the only one that understands of the candidates the process that we are going to have to go through as a city if we wish to correct our 100-year-old elementary school buildings. Actually, they're older than 100. They're the oldest in the state. So, vote for Nancy Sykes on November 5th.
Thank you. Please, 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 to be fair to all the candidates, let's hold our applause until all have spoken. Thank you, Mr. Ewing.
This has been the fourth and the largest of 7 scheduled mayoral debates and forums. Most of you have heard us on the radio, read about us in the newspaper, watched us on TV and the internet. Still, many of you are here tonight to try to decide which candidate to vote for to continue Easthampton's revival. I put to you that it's no one's right or due to be elected because of the office they've been turned in, the committee they've served on, how many years they've lived in the city, or which schools their children have attended. What does matter most is threefold: vision, education, and proven leadership skills. I have a vision for our future that's been supported since day one with a well-thought-out platform, which includes affordable housing, support for the arts community, expanding our cultural district, and creating a senior volunteer property tax workout program. I have pertinent education in business and finance, which will be essential for our next mayor to possess. Finally, I have over 2 decades of proven successful leadership experience. I've made budgets and I've lived within them. I've worked on personnel issues at all levels. I think that I do on my feet very successfully. But the most intangible point is that people have always perceived me as a leader, which is critically essential to the mayor's office. I'm the only candidate with 10 years of elected municipal experience, the only candidate with over 20 years of successful leadership experience, the only candidate with financial education. I ask you to consider this, and when you go to the polls, know what you're doing and vote for Dave Ewing.
Thank you. Ms. Cadger.
I believe I am the most qualified person to leave Easthampton as your next mayor. As a very strong, independent person, I'll provide Easthampton with leadership needed to bring us into a competitive and brighter future together. I'll make sure that we have a first-rate public safety system, school excellence, vibrant and smart business growth, programs, outreach, and transportation for seniors, bridge and road repair and maintenance. And I am the only candidate that's had 19 years of municipal experience. And I am the only candidate that has been the mayor of Easthampton and the leader of Easthampton. And I lead by example in a positive reinforcement way. And with your vote, together we can make all this happen while keeping our city fiscally sound with a balanced budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cadger. Thank you, all 4 candidates. Now we can express our... Again, my thanks to the audience, to those of you who were in attendance, especially those of you who submitted questions. Thank you very much. Please take advantage of the upcoming opportunities to continue to be informed about the candidates who seek to be our next mayor, and remember to be sure and vote. Thank you and have a good evening.
Yeah, I know, it's surprised.
That's hard work.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Good job.
Good job.
Thank you very much.